Here's one tip for every single character in Marvel Rivals that you should probably know, with some being pretty basic to some being more advanced. But anyways, let's get started. So getting started with Adam Warlock. If you're friendly side when you have your ultimate available, you can see at the bottom right that they appear on the UI as they die. Now you always want to put your ultimate behind some sort of cover. Your ultimate range is 30 meters. Meaning if they're not within that 30 meters, you're not rezzing them. See, as I'm farther away, they're not on the UI. Get closer, they're in the UI. Cast my ultimate, and he's rezzed. He's not getting rezzed at full HP, so make sure you heal him up. Now when it comes to Black Panther, there's a lot of different techniques you can do. Firstly, if you dash, you're going way too far in your dash, and you can't really follow up with another dash or some type of attack. To avoid this, all you have to do is jump, look down, and dash. This is a short dash. Again, I have a full guide coming out all on Black Panther, but this is a quick and easy, movement technique that you can do for Black Panther that a lot of people skip over. So again, jump, dash straight down. It's a short dash, pretty simple. So if you're going too far, you don't have to worry about that. Although some people have covered this in other videos already, it's just another reminder that you should probably pay attention to if you want to get really good at Black Panther. Now when it comes to Black Widow, I already have a full guide talking about her, but this is just a recap and refresher. When you're sprinting, the second you start sprinting, you can power jump. Start sprinting, power jump. Very easy to do. Then you can melee or press E and then E back, and it gives them another knock up. So to combo this, what you would do is press E, kick them away, E again, knock them up, and then snipe them. So again, E them away, E too close to them, and again get a free shot. Usually it's easiest to pair with a headshot, like that. Now when it comes to Hulk, a lot of people sleep on this character. But when you're trying to take a fight against two players, and there's a healer pocketing the person you're trying to take out, use your, radioactive lockdown so that they can't use any abilities. As you can see, you emit a gamma energy to render enemies immobilized and immune to all ability effects. Using heavy blow or gamma will permanently remove this status. So it's very useful to say a healer so they can't heal the person you're attacking. Now when it comes to Captain America, besides being able to block and reflect pretty much every single ultimate in this game, you can also bunny hop with this character by holding down sprint and then bouncing around. You can see if you're doing it right, if you're bouncing, bunny hopping, just like the good old days of CSGO. Now what's interesting is you have the diving strike. All you have to do is quickly shift and then dive down. You can combo this into any type of melee ability, anything like that, and it's super useful to get a huge burst of damage. And as always, you can just continuously to bunny hop around, giving this character a ton of mobility and movement to hopefully catch players off guard with good flanks or just a ton of pressure. Now if you're playing Cloak and Dagger for the first time, this is something you should pay attention to. See this little arrows that are moving on their own? Well, basically you have aimbot. As you can see, I don't even have to really have my crosshair at the enemy character, and it will instantly go to them. This is really easy if you're new to, this type of shooter game, and you don't have the best aim in the world. This character is very useful for that. Also, if you're in cloak form, if you press shift, you turn out of cloak form. But if you press right click or your alternate fire, you go into the vanish. You can become invisible. But something to note is that you can fly. Right click, and then pressing space, you can fly up. This is extremely useful for getting to different spots on the map and just trying to get out of enemy fire. You can also cloak teammates, and it's just a very useful tip to know. When it comes to Doctor Strange, there's only one thing I really want to talk about, and it's your dark energy. As you know, the more dark energy you get, the more damage you can do when you press your E ability, which is this. But the second that you get too much dark energy, that being 100 dark energy, and you forget about it, you will actually get an anti-heal defect that could hinder yourself and your teammates. It hinders your teammates because your healers can't heal you, and they're not doing their job really. And it's hindering yourself because you're not receiving heal. So it's something to be mindful of. Now when it comes to Groot, we all know he has these cool walls that you can build, but you can adjust the angles. Forward, and then like I guess what is this, like a 60-degree angle, then a straight 90. So you can wall off here. And then you could wall, say again, like a 60-degree angle, and this will go up it. So you can start cracking 90s like it's Fortnite. And basically you can keep doing this until it breaks, which is pretty useful to know. Now when it comes to Hawkeye, just like I mentioned in my Hawkeye guide video, you can block incoming projectiles with his default melee if timed correctly. I mean, it's kind of hard to time, but you eventually get it, and you know if you get it because you'll hear a noise. It's like a swing, you know, that type of noise. And another thing, when you ulti, you see these after images, shoot the after images, you do damage. And you instantly get 100 charge when you charge up your bow. So you can spam 100 charges into the passing enemies. Something very useful and overlooked as Hawkeye. Most of the time when you have the 100% charged ultimate, you're only going for the actual player. Keep in mind, you have the after image to use to your advantage. That's the whole point of this character, is to have the after image and the spam. Now when it comes to Hela, there's quite a lot of useful tips that you can do. See, for instance, when I get like 1 HP, I can pop my ulti, it gives me a free 1000 HP. Something to also know is that you can easily splash enemies behind walls and objects. So say for there, I'm splashing behind a wall and it does damage. Although it's not a ton of damage, you can still splash the enemies. Another thing is that your E sucks them in. So one useful tip I highly recommend is right clicking and then throwing your E in, as the explosion will then get casted. So you're right clicking, throwing your E, you get sucked in, and then they take damage. This is for, say, if you can't really land your right click onto the target exactly or to behind some type of cover, you can easily right click and then suck in. Very useful to know. So one useful tip for IronFist is that you have to be in range to get the dash. See this circle? I can now dash and hit the enemy, but this is actually a setting you can turn on. All you have to do is go to settings, make sure you have IronFist selected by pressing the top left and then clicking on IronFist. Then from there you go to hero, you go to display attack range, select that. See the circle? Boom. From there you can know the range at where you can hit enemies from. Pretty useful. Now when it comes to Ironman, it's pretty easy to counter him. There's so many hit scan characters that pose a problem to him. So the best way is to play out of range, keep yourself behind cover, and poke from a distance. The second you right click, you're just standing still and in the open. If you enhance, then you'll do more damage, and it's a little more useful. Most of the time I don't really play Ironman because there's too many faults with him that I find, and there's just so many other ways to play him. But one thing to know is that if you have a Doctor Strange on your team, someone can set up a portal and you can ult through the portal and it will still connect, which is something that's pretty cool. Now when it comes to playing Jeff, here's something to know. Instead of going forward, go backwards and side to side. You do this little, water travel, but you go a little bit faster than actually going forward. Now, when you're in your ultimate ability, you chomp everyone up. Instead of spitting them out over the map and risking that they can get back into the map, unfortunately, you're going to have to take one for the team. Instead of spitting them out, use your ultimate, climb up the wall, and send yourself to Narnia. This guarantees the kills of the enemies. Now when it comes to playing Loki, I wouldn't say this is really a tip or anything. It's more about like information. So when you copy an ultimate, you actually appear friendly to the enemy team. You can use this kind of like a spy from TF2 with cloaking. You can get next to opponents, and if they don't realize it, you can just casually play the game with them. Using your healing abilities and everything like that. And then at the second chance that they notice you, well, just pop your ultimate and get away. That whatever you copied with. So something to know. Now when it comes to looting, so there's some things that are pretty obvious. If you're out of combat for a while, you get a speed boost, which is extremely useful. When you're ultimate, you can swap between healing and speed boost. You can bind this to a mouse wheel if you really want to spam it as fast as you can, healing and giving speed boost. Now there's a lot of other things with Lunar Snow. Press shift, get this effect. It heals and damages at the same time. You can pierce through your friendlies and heal and damage. So instead of just healing like this, you can do a lot more damage that way. Another thing, try to land your right click as best as possible. This is a freeze and it stuns the opponent. The second they take damage from anybody, they get unfrozen. Say a Psylocke or someone is trying to dive you, freeze them, tell your team to turn around. Now when it comes to Magik, the basis of dealing damage is always having an ability in between you do an auto attack or a left click, whatever you want to call it. So take for example, left click E, use an ability. Left click shift, demon, left click shift, left click, spin. You know, you have to input a ability between every single time you're doing an auto attack. This is how you get maximum damage output, and it's the best way to play Magik. Now, I'll have a whole guide coming out talking about Magik in the near future, so it's just something to know. And of course, as you're dealing damage with abilities, you're getting bonus health and bonus shield, so it's something to take note of. Now when it comes to playing Magneto, there's something to keep in mind. Your shield blocks all incoming projectiles and doesn't have any HP. What Magneto's shield relies on is the duration of the time. So look, I can absorb as much damage as I can, but it all depends on the shield duration. It doesn't matter the amount it's soaking up, but as it takes more damage, of course that time is going to go down. Another thing to note is that his ultimate ability is based on how much, DPS and damage is coming through. The more you charge up your ultimate, the more damage it's going to do. Pretty self-explanatory. Now when it comes to playing Mantis, this is something you should always do. Always damage boost yourself. You can damage boost yourself by pressing F. And at the same time, you can boost a teammate, and you can both be outputting a ton of DPS. And Mantis' ultimate, you can use all of your other abilities while you're popping your ultimate in that duration. You can boost, you can do everything. So when you're ulting, use all of your abilities still. There's no reason to why you should not be using your abilities when you're playing Mantis and ulting. Now when it comes to Moon Knight, I have a couple tips for him. The first and most obvious one that I've made shorts and videos and talked about already is by looking straight at the ground, then using your grapple, and you get propelled and launched into the sky. From there, you can glide around. It eliminates the duration from A to B when you grapple normally. Simply look at the ground, grapple, and you're all the way up. From there, double jump, and then glide. This is how you can do a lot of DPS very quickly. Left click, E, right click, left click. Pretty self-explanatory. You do this particular combo because it does the most amount of damage in my opinion. So left click, go straight to the head, slap your E so get knocked up and pulled, then hit your right click because when they're in the air, they're defenseless to your right click. Your right click does more damage than your left click and is very useful. Now when it comes to Namor, Namor Jr., whoever you want to call him, it doesn't really matter. Be mindful of where you put your turrets down. Your turrets or your squids are extremely useful to do a lot of damage. Most of the time, if enemies are aware, are going to be targeting that first rather than yourself. Something to note, you can stick them on walls, surfaces, anything to give you a slight advantage. If you have them set up high, enemies have to look up high to attack them. While they're looking up, you simply attack them with your auto attacks, both your left and right click. Now when it comes to penning, the best thing I find is throwing your shift down outside like a spawn door, so they can't really see, and then slap mines everywhere. It's kind of like OG Junkrat like strategy from Overwatch, where you just like spam stuff at the start. Pretty funny and useful to do. Now when it comes to Psylocke, something that's super useful is her right click ability. As we all know, throughout the right click you gain a shield, you can recall it and it pierces enemies. You can throw it at a wall, get between enemies, and it pierces both of them. Now this is because the right click follows your crosshair. I right click there, aim there, it goes there. So if you have two enemies, right click one, aim at the other one, right click again, it hits both of them and you get more shield. So you could use this to burst enemies down quite quickly, so you don't have to worry about just focusing one enemy with your right click. Now when it comes to Racoon, we know that his shift or his dash doesn't go that far. It's a fixed distance, meaning it will always go a certain amount of distance that is, within the code of the game. But if you get to a surface, jump, and then shift or dash, you get a super jump or a super dash, however you want to call it. You can do this with any surface, and it's extremely useful to do to get out of super sticky situations. Always slap down your E. Your E can provide a shield boost, it can provide boots that make your teammates jump higher, it can provide a lot of things. The best Rocket Raccoon players are the ones that are in the prep phase throwing down their E. And again, the super dash as well. And when it comes to Scarlet Witch, her entire kit is pretty basic. Her ultimate kind of stinks if you're just going raw. There's no one comboing you with anything. Try to charge your ultimate behind a wall or something like that. Otherwise, if you're just charging in the open, you're as good as dead, as it's a pretty easy ultimate to see and counter. And when it comes to Spider-Man, there's quite a lot of things to know. Firstly, go to settings, make sure you have Spider-Man selected. Of course, I go to Spider-Man, confirm. From there, you can see all of the different settings you can change for Spider-Man. There is a ton of changes you can do. Now, another thing, when you swing and web, you want to jump after. This carries the momentum. As you can see, I'm still carrying the momentum. Another thing, for a rollout, you can shift and then uppercut to carry that momentum even further. This allows you to get around the map very quickly. Very useful to know that a lot of people overlook. Spider-Man's kit is very unique, and there's a lot of options and movement abilities that you can do with him that I've seen a lot of people already do, which, you know, is just amazing with this game. Something Overwatch could never. Now, when it comes to Squirrel Girl, she's essentially like a combo heavy character. So, left click, root, eat your acorn, left click, root. It's so much to do, but it does a lot of damage. Left click, root, left click, it resets, root again, E, left click, it just keeps going on and on. This character is very combo driven, but also you can bounce the acorns off the ground. It's very useful. Always use your ultimate in some type of tight corridor so that you can get the maximum amount of damage and output of it. As you can see, it's going to just keep bouncing and bouncing, so you just want to use that to your advantage. When you're playing Starlord, you can use your Blast Barrage while you press shift, so you can get higher with your, dodge. So again, Blast Barrage fires a frenzy of shots, causing damage to enemies within its range. Again, this is the Blast Barrage. Now, something to note is that you can also press shift with it, Blast Barrage, and then fly up. Pretty useful to know. Yeah, when it comes to playing Storm, one of my most favorite characters in this entire game is that this aura that you have, the higher you go up, the smaller it goes. As you can see, you can tell how many enemies and friendlies are, in your area of effect. I have 3 friendlies labeled as blue, 1 as red. If you're colorblind, I apologize. If you're in the wind form and you have friendlies in the area, they get a speed boost. If I press shift and I'm in my lightning form with friendlies in the surrounding area, they get a weapon bonus buff, whatever you want to call it. Now, when it comes to Punisher, he actually has a lot of movement like Spider-Man that you can use to get some pretty sick rollouts. Another thing is, if you're in a big fight and you're losing a lot of HP quickly, simply go into turret form. This saves you, HP for a little bit. Of course, it isn't a guarantee that you'll survive after they destroy the turret, but hopefully you might be able to live just a little bit longer. So as you can see, if I grapple straight forward, I go pretty fast. But the second I start going backwards, I go faster. I can use a right click and bounce even further. Something that's pretty cool. Now, when it comes to Thor, besides acting more like a DPS than a tank, his Storm Surge ability, which is his shift, you kind of commit. The only way to cancel the ability is by having it fully charged, but there you're already wasting one hammer charge. If you don't want to waste really that hammer charge, you can look down, straight down, do it like that. You always want to be fighting inside of your little field, your lightning realm. This allows you to build up your hammers a lot quicker, and it's just a lot better. Again, in my eyes, this character is played more like a DPS than anything. You're more like a bruiser, how I see it. Then comes Venom. Oh, sweet Venom. I've already made a YouTube short on this, but simply all you have to do is go to settings, go to keyboard and combat, make sure that you select Venom. From there, scroll down. Go to easy swing and make sure this is disabled. As it states, when enabled, the ability will automatically select available grappling points to initiate the swing. This means if I have it on and I just press shift, I can't choose where I'm going to be swinging at, it just sets it up for me. The second I go in, go to combat, scroll down, change this, it doesn't automatically go for it, and I can choose where I want to swing. Now, this is something I highly recommend if you want to play Venom. It just makes your life easier, allows for a lot more fluidity when you're moving around the map, and there's no really disadvantage to it besides having to aim where you're going to be swinging. Now, when it comes to Winter Soldier, this character can do a lot. You can hook someone into you, turn 180, and then punch. It's kind of like Bebop from Deadlock, if you remember that at all. Or if you don't, well, then I don't know. Or like Roadhog, I guess. Hook them and then spin them around and then knock them in. But another thing is, if you ult a target and they're not in that execution range, you can spam them down, get them to that execution range, and it'll do it for you. So let me show you what I mean. I go up in my ulti, I hit them, then I have that execution bar still. I get them to that threshold, they instantly get executed, and I still get a refresher on my ultimate. So if they're not necessarily in that execution range, it's okay to ult them. They don't have to be super low just to ult them. Although it's not a guaranteed reset if you die or something, but it's like if you do enough damage when you ult them, you still get your ultimate back. So don't be afraid to use your ultimate whenever. Now when you're playing Wolverine, you can easily miss your dash like this. Completely missing it. But if you use your viscous rampage, which is your right click, you can cancel it. Pretty useful to know. So again, I'm jumping, I'm shifting, it cancels it. And I go directly to the target essentially. So you could use this as a quick and easy gap closer instead of this being like a floating duck or like a Superman wannabe. Instead, press shift, right click, and it cancels. And that was my one essential tip for every single character in Marvel Rivals. And if you're new here or find yourself coming back on the regular and you aren't already subscribed yet, why not? You're coming back anyways. I'm going for the goal of 10,000 subscribers, so join the pond. All these tips were submitted by users like you. And make sure to check out Control. It's a quick and healthy alternative to snacks for your long gaming hours. Links are in the description. I hope you have a great day and I'll catch you in the next one.